posse in a breakfast mess.
I've always liked things that move. Adding movement to figures that are normally static and still just adds a whole thing. It just captures people's attention. It brings a certain life.
Now, Andy, did you hear about this one? Tell me, are you locked in the pond? Andy, are you goofing on Elvis too, baby? Are we losing touch? If you believe they put a man on the moon, man on the moon. If you believe there's nothing up their sleeve.
My name is Tom Haney. I make automata, which is also known as figurative kinetic sculpture. I used to make props and models and miniatures for TV commercials, for still photographers, for movies. I always had a studio, I had a shop, and I had all the tools and all the paints and things like that. And I wanted to develop something that I could make a unique thing that would be all my own. And I got into making a simple, almost like a marionette that's operated by keys. This is the first piece I ever made, and it's operated by the keys out front. My wife and I were making whirligigs, and I decided to make a piece, a figure that was going to hang off the whirligig. Didn't work out the way I wanted it to, so I said, oh, I'll put him on stage and put keys out front and strings on him so he can be basically an interactive, a one-on-one sort of character. The keys operate his arms and his legs and his hat and his whole body, so it's sort of very interactive. When I was making, I didn't really know what I was making. I was just turned into a little stage, this turned into a backdrop, a marquee. I wanted to put the keys that were out in front, and so it turned out so well that I decided to make more. I had the time, I was always a freelance person. So I started working on pieces on my own, and so I did that for starting in the mid-90s, and I was in Atlanta. I would work for Cartoon Network and TBS and TNT, and again had time in between projects to work on my artwork, because I've always wanted to be an artist, and I wanted to transition between working for that commercial and an entity and just doing all my own work. I had a family friend who's a beekeeper, and he's like, oh, I'd love to see you do a beekeeper. And at first I was like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm not crazy enthused about things, but I got into it. He told me a lot of specifics about certain, the tools and the processes that a beekeeper has. I did some online research, the carts that get put in and out, and I was like, oh, it's got to have a lot of bees, involved, and this is how am I going to make the bees? And it turned into a really great piece, and he loved it. And there were many people from all over the world who were beekeepers. It's like, I love that piece. One of the funny things that I thought was pretty smart is I needed to make lots of little bees. And what I ended up doing, instead of making them by hand, I took black rice and took little pieces of black rice and painted yellow stripes on them, and those were my bees, and so I could make tons and tons of those. Each one of my pieces have a certain narrative. There's some sort of story that I want to tell, but I'm not so specific as like, this is what this means. I'm always leaving it open-ended that people can figure out what it means for them. In 2008, I started to get into galleries, and that was a whole different thing. Right now I'm back. I did that for about 10 years, and now I'm back to being independent, and I survive on my commission. So I really enjoy the process of somebody contacting me and saying, I want a piece about this or that. I'm interested in, rowing, or I'm interested in dogs and horses or whatever. My family, I want a piece about my family. But a really interesting commission recently was a guy from New York. It was an African-American guy. And he said, I want something about the civil rights movement. And originally he said, he mentioned Rosa Parks and that whole scene from the bus. And originally I said, there's not a whole lot of movement to it. I don't know how dramatic or how interesting it would be. And I asked him what else, could he think of? And he gave me some ideas. Then I went back to the Rosa Parks idea, and I was like, that could be really dramatic of her sitting as a scene from the bus, her sitting on the bus with holding her purse, and the bus driver like pointing to the back, confronting her and pointing to the back of the bus, and her just sitting there quietly and turning her head. And I didn't realize how powerful that piece would come out, but it was really powerful. Everybody who's seen it really said that's her, that's the story, that's the incident. It's just like really a great piece. And of course I shipped it up to New York where the guy was, and it was just like, this is amazing. He's been a fan, he's always liked my work, and he finally said, I want to commission you to do this piece I have in mind. And so it is a kind of a collaborative process where somebody says, I'd like this, and some things that people come up with I can't do because they're impossible mechanically. Like, I want this person to walk across the room and pick something up, and there's certain things I can't do mechanically, but so we kind of figure it out. This is kind of a personal story about like when I saw a tornado in Ohio when I was 11 and a half. I saw a tornado came to Ohio, specifically Cincinnati. This kind of completes the story. This is the front, but I wanted to wrap the story around the piece. And this kind of completes the story. It talks about how I still have dreams and thoughts and ideas about tornadoes. I have several pieces of art that are tornado related. It's my own story, and my wife thought that I shouldn't ever sell, so that's why it's here in my gallery. I think about my pieces, you have this concept in your mind, it's going to be a certain way or have a certain feel. And part of the process is creating the story of the pieces and the lives. Like when I'm sculpting, sometimes I'm trying to make somebody look like a certain way, and sometimes I just figure it out on the top of my head when I'm sculpting. They kind of take on their own personality and their own life, because it's like I'm never 100% sure how it's going to turn out. I try to do things that are more realistic and subtle, because sometimes you just need a head turn or an arm lift or somebody doing a little thing that's just like, oh, done something.